Alright YouTube, so we are back, of course, to talk about some Final Fantasy VII Remake, and today I wanted to just kind of talk about the ending of the game. I don't think we've actually done a full-on discussion about it. We talked about it here and there, and I did a video dedicated to kind of explaining the ending for those that might not have understood it, but I don't think we've actually just straight up talked about it. And this discussion kind of stems off of two separate things. One was this interesting fan theory over on Reddit that we're going to look at, and the other was a Screen Rant article talking about the possibility of like the next game sort of being a continuation of Crisis Core, even though technically FF7 was a continuation of Crisis Core, but maybe more so because Zack is alive, we get almost like a pseudo-sequel to Crisis Core. The main reason I want to talk about these two and just the ending as a whole is because they pose some very interesting questions. For starters, the fan theory, it's a bit lengthy, so we don't need to read the whole thing, but it pretty much implies that Barret died, at least in the Remake's timeline. And where this theory comes from is a scene at the end of Remake Part 1 that parallels the ending of the original game. So at the end of the original Final Fantasy VII, whenever Meteor is about to destroy the planet, Aerith summons Holy to protect it, Marlene can sense her presence. She actually says, "The Flower Girl," and walks to the window and looks out. And when it comes to Final Fantasy VII Remake, we get a very similar scene at the end, but this time Marlene senses Barret's presence.
Coming! Daddy?
She even runs up and looks out the window, similar to the original game's ending. Now, what exactly does this mean? And it actually rolls into a scene of Barret reaching his hand out, implying some sort of connection between Barret and Marlene. The thing is, however, the theory that this person poses on Reddit is that they're not even in the same timeline anymore. So at the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake, Sephiroth creates this portal that goes to a completely different realm. I don't even know where it's actually supposed to be at. We obviously destroy the Whisper Harbinger, and then he also takes Cloud to the edge of creation, whatever the hell that means. It sounds cool. So after we defeat Sephiroth in the remake, we get a scene that parallels the final fight with Sephiroth in the original game, where it's just Cloud and Sephiroth one-on-one. The thing is, whenever he's traveling to the edge of creation, it seems to imply some sort of time travel. For starters, Cloud seems to be going through like a wormhole. If you know anything about time travel and wormhole theory, that's exactly what this looks like. And even when Cloud and Sephiroth are talking at the edge of creation, Sephiroth actually says the line to Cloud, "Careful now, that which lies ahead does not yet exist," which is another implication that he can see multiple different timelines. Or that he can see the future or go to the future, I'm not entirely sure.
Careful now. That which lies ahead does not yet exist.
So the theory would be that I guess Sephiroth took us to a different timeline, possibly the original game's timeline. Now obviously Barret is alive at the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake. We use him in the final fights. He's in the last cutscene, but Marlene seems to have a connection to the livestream, right? She can sense Aerith's presence even though Aerith is dead in the original game. And at the exact moment that we destroy the Whisper Harbinger and get rid of the Whispers, the Watchmen of Fate, we see that Zack has survived. It rolls into the scene where we see that Biggs has also survived, and directly after the Biggs reveal, we get the Marlene scene where she senses her dad's presence, which to me is an indication that he has joined the livestream. It actually makes a lot of sense when you break it down, because us destroying the Watchmen of Fate prevented Zack from dying, right? They're not there to make sure he dies. Us killing them would also make sure that they're not there to protect Barret whenever Sephiroth stabs him. You take the Watchmen of Fate out of the scene, and Barret is 100% dead. Sephiroth kills him. Now, obviously, we have no idea if this is all true. This is just a fan theory, but 100% the two Marlene scenes are connected. They parallel each other almost exactly, just different people. And we know for 100% fact that the Sephiroth in the remake can see the other timelines. Whether it's one Sephiroth or multiple Sephiroths, he can see the future, the past, the present, the different timelines, all that other shit. So it is very, very possible that Sephiroth could have taken us to a different timeline, and the Barret of the remake timeline dies right here. To be honest with you, this was a far more interesting and more in-depth than I thought it was going to be. We're going to talk about this a little bit, and then we're also going to talk about the other effects that destroying the Watchmen of Fate might have had on like the timeline. Like, with them no longer there to make sure certain things happen in the FF7 story, maybe something like the Nibelheim incident never actually happens. Maybe Sephiroth never actually goes crazy. But I think we're going to save that discussion, that topic, for another video. So more so than usual, I definitely want you guys' thoughts on this since we're talking about a fan theory here about the game. Do you think Barret in the remake timeline is dead? That's why Marlene senses presence. Do you think that when it comes to Remake Part 2, we're going to be in a different timeline altogether? Possibly the original game's timeline. And regardless of whether or not this fan theory ends up being true, they did the same with Marlene for a reason. There's a reason they showed us a similar scene to the original game's ending, and there's a reason she's sensing Barret's presence. It's just a matter of what exactly it means. But of course, my dudes, that's pretty much it. I'll have the Reddit post linked in the description below if you want to go read it for yourself and kind of give your feedback to the guy who posted it. Either way, hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys aren't new. Want to update more Final Fantasy VII Remake content. Turn on my notifications. Follow me on Twitter at @dashingdavid, at my Discord. Links to my social networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys.
Careful now. That which lies ahead does not yet exist.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Logain, or leave it like Cobain.